comes ahead of a Security Council meeting, which could either offer a stamp of approval or raise further questions. Now, the speeches at the UN under the specter of the assassination of a French tourist in Algeria. We're going to hear in a moment the French president's first comments. He's due to address the UN General Assembly later on. We're also asked, how do you take on a group that claims it's a caliphate but acts more like an elusive movement with, case in point, seemingly unrelated militants as far away as Algeria ready to act? Today in the France 24 debate, is the world united against the jihadists? With us to talk about it, he's a conservative member of the French Parliament, part of the Foreign Affairs Committee there. Jacques Millard, welcome back to the show. We want to welcome as well defense policy academic Pierre Conessa, the author of The Manufacturing of the Enemy, or How to Kill with a Clean Conscience. Thank you for joining us. And from Istanbul, Christopher Dickey, foreign editor of the Daily Beast. Welcome back, sir. The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. Just a few short minutes ago, François Hollande, speaking to reporters, he said that he would be addressing this Thursday a Defense Council cabinet meeting at the presidential palace when he returns to Paris. Right now he's in New York. He has confirmed what he calls the cruel and cowardly assassination of a French hostage in Algeria, 53-year-old Hervé Gourdel. He was abducted Sunday evening. Jacques Millard splashed across this morning's French papers the worry this ultimatum had passed for France to stop taking part in the coalition, the French steadfastly saying no. What's your reaction to this news now?
I would say, first of all, of course, I have a much sympathy for the family and for his friends. But I can tell you that the ultimatum, 24 hours, was just a pretext because those people wanted to kill him. So I don't think this is really related to the airstrikes of France. I think we are facing a movement, you know, this Khalifa, who want to make of terror their own communication weapon. And I think that they will carry on. There is no doubt about that. The point is, for us, how do we prevent young French, young Europeans to go and join them? I thought the name of Pierre Conessa name, the manufacturing of the enemy. And this enemy has been manufactured by many states, including certainly sometimes United States, Saudi Arabia, Syria. And
I'm sorry, the United States? How
yes,
is the United
because
States?
they really try to, give weapons, try to have people against Bashar. And a friend of mine, who is an expert on Near East, said to me that this kind of caliphate is, a society in which people have bought many shares. And today, I'm pretty sure that this question of airstrike is just a pretext. They are going to carry on in a way of a transnational terror system. And this is what we are going to face.
How do you think your constituents are going to react? Is it going to steel their resolve against ISIS? Or are they going to waver and say, I'm sorry,
no,
I'm going to interrupt you, Jacques Millard. I'm going to interrupt you because we're going to go to New York and hear the remarks of the French president.
Fellow Frenchman, Mr. Hervé Gourdel, was assassinated by a terrorist group, cruelly, shamefully. I can only think of him. He went to Algeria to follow his passion, mountain climbing. He was the victim of a horrible crime, and the criminals must be punished. I can only think of his family, his partner, his parents. I've spoken to them, who are buried in grief. I think of his family members and his friends who just cannot understand this injustice. Why him? Why there? And I also think of all of our fellow citizens who are horrified because the very goal of terrorists is to frighten and terrify. At this point in time, I would like to recall a few very simple ideas. Hervé Gourdel has died because he was French, because his country, France, is fighting against terrorism. Hervé Gourdel died because he represents a people, our people, who believe in liberty and human dignity and fight against barbarian conduct. I am determined, and this attack will only reinforce my determination to continue fighting terrorism everywhere, in particular the group ISIS or Daesh, which is spreading death in Iraq, in Syria, which is persecuting civilians, religious minorities, raping, beheading, and yes, we shall continue being mobilized and fight against this terrorist group, responding to the appeal of the Iraqi authorities. The military operations will continue as long as it takes. And we must take every measure that is necessary to protect the security of our compatriots in France and around the world. We must be cautious so that no one be exposed to a risk inadvertently. Tomorrow, I will call a meeting of the Defense Council in order to re-examine the goals that we have set for our military action and again reinforce the protection of my fellow citizens. In this ordeal, the only way to respond, the best way to respond is to be united. And I'm very pleased that the Parliament has been united. I would like to launch an appeal to all. All of our communities must come together, over and beyond our differences, over and beyond our different convictions, because that is what is at stake here. France shall not give in to terrorism. France will never give in to terrorism because it is our duty, and over and beyond, it is the source of our honor.
There you heard it, the remarks of the French President François Hollande denouncing what he calls a cruel and cowardly assassination, that of 53-year-old French tourist Hervé Gourdel. The news coming through via a video sent by a hardline Islamist group from Algeria. We're in the company here in the France 24 debate of member of the French Parliament, Jacques Millard. We're also in the company of Pierre Conessa, who teaches at the French Political Science Institute, Sciences Po, former advisor to the French Defense Department, and Christopher Dickey, who is the foreign editor at the Daily Beast. He is in Istanbul. Pierre Conessa, Algeria, a country you know well, your reaction to this news?
Well, this is an horrible assassination because it's exactly the copy of what has been done in Iraq by the Islamic State. But just remember that in this country, unfortunately, we had to face, exactly the same beheaded of 10 months, of the Tiberin. So
this was the monks that were beheaded during the so-called blood years in Algeria when there was a civil war.
Yes, and you notice that we had no bomb Algeria at that moment. So my question is mainly: is military means the best way to respond to terrorist attack? First point, and the second point is: why do our president don't design who is the enemy? Terrorism is a way to use violence, but the real enemy is the Salafist jihadist. What's the Salafism? It's the creation of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia found a lot of extremists to face the Muslim Brotherhood, because Brotherhood has sustained, Saddam Hussein during the invasion of Kuwait.
But Saudi Arabia's changed its stripes, it says, and now it's taking part in the strikes against ISIS inside of Syria.
Yes, but my question is, why do the Western country has to bomb? I mean, it's the whole problem of the Middle East countries, because this state and all those Islamists have been created by Saudi Arabia and by some countries of the region. So that's their problem. I mean, they have more than 400 modern aircraft. They can use it as they want. If they want more, we can sell them. But the question is, why do the American, the French people have to share this burden? I do believe that the more we will intervene, the more we will be threatened all over the world. And I'm not sure that Mr. Gourdel was deeply involved in the French policy in Iraq. So this is an unresponsible policy.
Do you agree, Christopher Dickey?
No, I don't agree. First of all, I don't think we're being threatened because
Christopher, I'm going to have to...
Al-Qaeda. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm going to have to cut you off because we seem to be having technical issues. We're going to try to sort those out and get back to you right away. Christopher Dickey doesn't agree. We'll hear from him in a minute. Jacques Miao?
I agree partly with Pierre, because it is very true that this terror system, this Khalifa, has been mainly created by people who played God. And Saudi Arabia, but not only Saudi Arabia, Qatar, have helped those people against Bashar, because Bashar has a link with Iran, and the war in Syria and was mainly a war of proxy, because in fact, Saudi Arabia wanted to counter and contain Iran. And secondly, you have to bring in the wrong policy followed by Maliki in Iraq, because he faced, a coalition which is very awkward. You have the tribes, you have the people of Al-Qaeda who are genuine Salafists, and you had the Baathists, the former Baath government administrators. So it is a genuine cocktail we had. But where I disagree is that, unfortunately, we have thousands of Europeans going into this mess, and who joined this kind of Khalifa and make the jihad. And I think that we are directly concerned by this phenomenon. And it is true that it will spread around. It will spread around almost everywhere in the Sahel. In Algeria, unfortunately, the Algerian government has never been able to crash down all the jihadists at home, and it may spread also by mad people in here.
All right, Christopher Dickey, the point made there by Jacques Miao that because of homegrown jihadists, it is the fight of countries like the United States and France.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think what President Obama has wanted to say, but when he said it, he's been pilloried for it, is that he needs to reduce, the West needs to reduce, the Arab countries need to reduce the kind of threat that's posed by ISIS and also Al-Qaeda to something that can be managed. It's never going to go away. It's always going to inspire some lunatics in Western countries and elsewhere to do the kinds of things that Nemouche did in Brussels when he went into a Jewish museum and killed 4 people, or that other people have tried to do in the United States recently. But the problem is, you don't want to have a situation where a group like that is not only inspiring people around the world with its really crazed fundamentalist philosophy, but it also controls a large swath of territory and a lot of money. ISIS is making more than $1 million a day selling oil, a lot of it through Turkey up until recently. And one of the things that the administration has been trying to do, and I think it is beginning to succeed, is not just to enlist other air forces and not potentially to enlist other armies for boots on the ground, but to try and seal off the borders around ISIS, to close down its access to smuggling money and to other kinds of funds, and also to foreign fighters. And that's where I think you're going to see a lot of movement that won't get a lot of publicity, but that will have a profound effect on ISIS. and also on Al-Qaeda.
Christopher, ever since the Twin Towers were attacked in September of 2001, we've always been asking the question, whenever there have been attacks anywhere around the globe, how much of this comes from a central command? How much of this is just people taking the brand name? Before it was Al-Qaeda, now it's ISIS, and using it for their own means. How closely correlated would you say what's going on in Iraq and Syria is to the assassination of this French tourist in Algeria?
Well, I think you have a sort of a crappy little organization there in Algeria that wants to gain some sort of prestige by identifying itself with ISIS. I don't think that it has any particular standing in the world of jihadists. But maybe by kidnapping one tourist and murdering him, they can get the kind of publicity that, in fact, they are getting right now when you have the president of France speaking about the incident. But the other part of these organizations is much more threatening. The centrally controlled ISIS organization, which is very centralized around the Caliph al-Baghdadi, and also Al-Qaeda. I think one of the interesting developments of the last couple of days is the revelations about this Khorasan group that is essentially an avant-garde of Al-Qaeda, that is out recruiting jihadists from Europe and possibly from the United States who have gone to Syria, who've been attracted by the conflict there. And Al-Qaeda very much wants to attack the West, whether it's attacking airplanes or buildings or monuments or icons.
All right, we're going to pick up on that point, Christopher.
Of any sort.
We're going to pick. We're going to pick up on that point a little bit later on again about sorting which jihadists from whom. Right now here in France, the dust still settling on this horrific news that a French citizen has been killed inside of Algeria at the French National Assembly. Former magistrate and now member of Parliament Alain Marceau speaking shortly.
Our countrymen today are facing a very dangerous situation. There is a risk of more retaliatory actions to be taken against France. There are two particular nationalities that are currently at risk. There are the Americans, the British as well to a certain extent, and the French. They're not killing Germans, Swiss, or Belgians. It's the French that are targeted. And I'm not sure whether we're able to provide the same level of protection as the United States for our citizens.
All right, you heard Alain Marceau there saying that we're not sure we're able to provide the same kind of protection to our citizens as Americans. Do you agree?
Yes, I do agree. I would like to address one point as Senator Miard was quoting. I mean, today we assess between 9,000 and 12,000 foreigners, jihadists coming from abroad in Syria and Iraq. But this is more than 80 nationalities. And the coalition today is mainly two countries, France and the United States, and some local countries, which means that's the first point. So there are no 80 countries collaborating with the alliance. First point. The second point.
But hang on a second. You say that, Pierre, but we've seen countries like Jordan, which are on the front line, that are taking part in these airstrikes inside of Syria. And Jordan has a lot of jihadists that from its own country. It's exposing itself to retaliatory attacks.
Yes, for sure, for sure. But today, I'm mainly concerned by the threat against France. Today, it's not necessary for Salafists to go to Syria and Iraq. They have to do their own terrorist attack here. It's not necessary. Have you seen with Mera and Nemouche?
Mohamed Mera, the Toulouse shooter.
Yeah, the Mera 1 year ago and Nemouche 6 months ago, they just use their own capabilities. And a terrorist attack is considered violence in which the mediatic and psychological aspect is more important than the strategic effect, which means that if we kill one person with TV, and using TV, you have exactly the effect you are looking for. So you don't have to react immediately on the terrorist attack. You have to think about the best way to deal with the terrorist attack. Just remember one event which French people know best. The beginning of independence war in Algeria was the assassination of two people, a couple of instituteurs, of teachers, going to their school in the Aurès, in the same region. than the and just remember that at this moment the French government was explaining that never this assassination will be pardoned, will be forgiven, etc., and we'll deal with that. So you know the result: 120,000 military men on the ground, 7 years of war, right, at the end, the independence of Algeria.
No, I think you're right and wrong at the time.
Yes,
you know?
For sure.
Because the Algerian independence was a trend in international politics, and unfortunately, we did not take the necessary steps to do it smoothly. But it went back to 1947, etc. So, no, where you make a point is that we should avoid absolutely that the Western world is coalescing, is crusading against Islam, because this is what they want to achieve. We have to be very careful, and I agree with you that in those strikes, because not only the French and the American struck, but also Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Jordan, and I think they should carry on. And those people should stop their double language, you know, the double speech on this issue.
All right, have they stopped the double speech or not?
No, not yet.
We're going to pick up on that point when we come back. You're watching the France 24 debate.